Guys, my name is Eric, and I am a video game addict. I came to this program, it'll be 60 days tomorrow, and I came here because I knew that it would work. I spent a lot of nights being suicidal and desolate, looking on the internet for any kind of help with my gaming addiction. And for whatever reason, this last time, I found the link to this program, and I decided that I truly needed help. And it's been a blessing since I've been here. I came into the rooms, the 12-step rooms, over 14 years ago for drugs and alcohol, and my gaming addiction almost took me out of everything. And I'm an addict, so I'm always looking for something outside of myself to make me feel better about being inside my own skin. And I've used many different things to do so. You know, addiction is so crazy. My addiction was trying to kill the hosts. I had suicidal thoughts about ending my own life because I was so miserable and I was so lonely and I was so filled with fear that I was thinking that it would be better just to end my own life, and that's insanity. Permanent solution to a temporary problem. So to back up a little bit, as I mentioned, ever since I can remember, I've always felt uncomfortable in my own skin. From the time that I was a kid, I've always been trying to find something to make myself feel better and to make myself feel a part of a community or to fit in with other people. And it started with isolating and reading, and then I found sugar, and then I found video games. Those definitely went hand in hand. Then I found drugs and alcohol, but the gaming was always there. And even when I was working really diligently on my program with my other addiction, when I wasn't doing that and I wasn't working, I was spending all of my time gaming. And I didn't really understand that it was a problem back then because I was so focused on those other things that I felt that I was just doing something as a recreational habit. It became a huge problem for me. I think that for most addicts, we are all looking for something before we come here to make ourselves feel better, to numb out reality. And I never really enjoyed reality all that much. I always found it really painful. I found it really difficult to communicate with other people. I felt ashamed of the way of who I was a lot of the times. I didn't feel good enough. Or inversely, I would feel better than other people. I would get a false sense of self-esteem from feeling better than other people. And it was just a really terrible way to live. But specifically to my gaming addiction, it was a way for me to switch my brain off. I think all the time. I'm always thinking. I'm always in my head. I'm always thinking about the past or the future, or ways that I could feel better about my current situation. And so when I game, I don't have to have those thoughts anymore. I get to hyper focus in on something and get an adrenaline surge, a dopamine rush from manipulating pixels on a screen. And ever since I was a kid, I found that to be very effective for me. I could tune things out. I didn't have the best family life growing up, and I could just go into my room and turn on the Nintendo and just kind of like get sucked into a game, and I wasn't thinking about my problems or what was going on around me. I was just thinking about the fun that I was having, and that how easy it was for me to just not have to think, essentially. And so, like I said, my gaming addiction was always there. It was always there through everything else. I didn't game quite as much at the height of my drinking and my drugging. But like I said, when I got sober, it was something that I started up again with. As my recovery in that program began to build, it started to come back in really strongly. And it wasn't really strong at first. It was something that, like I said, that I would do when I wasn't at meetings or I wasn't working. And it kind of crept in. It's really insidious, video game addiction. I think I've said before that I never peed the bed or drove home in a blackout or cheated on my wife because of video games, But in a lot of ways, it's so much worse because it was silently just destroying my life. It was keeping me isolated from the world. And so every so often I would choose not to go to a meeting because I wanted to play. I wasn't feeling well, so I would, call in sick to work so I could play the game. And little by little, it started to get worse and worse, to the point where I was not going to meetings. I was not talking to my sponsor. I was not communicating with my sponsees. And I pulled a geographic and, during my time sober with my other program, and I moved across the country, and, I kind of held my wife hostage, and we moved, and, I found that my problems moved with me. I wasn't escaping anything really. But because I wasn't doing anything about my recovery at the time, I was turning more and more towards gaming to help me escape the uncomfortable reality that I was in. It was really uncomfortable for me just dealing with life when I had to, when so much of the time that I spent living was just avoiding reality in the first place. So as an example, and this is something that I've recently talked about with my wife. I'm married. Actually, I met my wife in the rooms, but we have a business together, and it was so painful showing up to photograph weddings and be present when I had just spent the past 2 days gaming constantly, and having to switch off or switch on from being isolated and completely devoid of reality to being thrust into having to be available and communicative and present for like what is possibly like one of the biggest days in someone's life was extremely painful. And every time I did that, I just remember I just felt like I was a fraud. I was a phony. I was a fake. I was just going through the motions, and it really was an awful place to be in. And my gaming addiction took me to opening up credit cards and spending money without telling my wife, to stealing money from our pool of money to spend on gaming. It was to the point where I used to get upset with my wife if she spent money on something because I was afraid that I wasn't going to have enough to continue my gaming. And through all of this, in the past 9 years, my wife and I have been trying to have a child, and it's been a 9-year process with all sorts of doctors involved and fertility therapy and everything. And part of the reason why my gaming addiction started to get so bad, I think, too, was that I knew that when I had a child that I was probably not going to be able to continue to do this. I didn't want my child to experience the same things that I experienced, where my mom just said, "Hey, I don't really want to deal with you, so here's a certificate to rent as many video games as you want this summer," and just kind of let me do my own thing and be locked in my room for 3 months. I wanted to be available, but I think that too that I was afraid to grow up, and so I knew that eventually the jig was going to be up, and so my addiction got worse and worse because I was so afraid that it was going to be taken away from me, that it started to just get crazier. And trying to be there for someone, going through this pregnancy thing that we went through, and not really being able to deal with any emotions, and instead just turning to video games to to push the things aside until I could maybe get to it tomorrow, but not really. It was just really an awful place, and I was not there really for my wife through all of this. And my daughter was born, and one of the worst things that I can remember that I did was I was terrified. She came 4.5 weeks early. I just couldn't deal. I was in so much fear about everything. We rushed into the hospital, was with my wife through the night. Our daughter was born. I was there for maybe an hour and a half. I wasn't really present after. I made up an excuse as to that I had to go home and get ready for a shoot the next day, which was partially true, but in actuality, it was just too much reality for me. And so I had to go home and and play games for the rest of the night. And that's really awful. I left my wife there with my daughter. Both of our parents don't live in the same state that we live in. We didn't really have anyone coming in to see my wife. I chose to play games instead of be there on one of the most important days of our lives, especially after 9 years of trying. And that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough for me. And I told my wife that I would stop playing, just like I'd told her in the past. Like I'll cut down, I'll stop. And I really tried, but I wasn't able to do it because I didn't have this program. It's interesting because the day that I decided to quit really wasn't the worst day. It wasn't the day that I was in the hospital with my wife. It was a few weeks after. And, I had been looking online, like I said, and I saw that this program existed. And I knew that would work because it had worked for me with my drugs and alcohol. So I came to my first meeting. I listened to what everyone had to say, and I heard someone share my story or parts of it. And I finally felt like I could find some sort of peace, that I was in the right place. There was other people out there that understood what it was like to feel uncomfortable in their own skin and different than, and that they didn't have to play games to get past that there was a solution. And the solution, from what I know, is really simple. And for me, the solution is to go to a meeting every day if I can, to incorporate prayer and sometimes meditation, if I can remember. I'm not very good at that sometimes, into my daily life, and to find a sponsor and to start working the steps. That's what I've done. I'm just about to start on my fourth step, and I have a lot of fears that I have to take a look at. I have a lot of wreckage that needs to be cleaned up. I have a persistent fear of financial insecurity. It was interesting today. We had a babysitter coming over, and I tend to be a little OCD about people coming over to my house. I want to make sure that it's like super clean before anyone can set foot in the door. And as I was like getting really, really anxious and really, really hyperactive about my cleaning and just kind of spinning out, I realized that really the basis of it was that I was afraid. I was afraid for someone to come into my house and judge me. And this is like completely ridiculous thinking, because there's somebody that we're hiring to come in and watch our daughter that we trust. And I'm more worried about whether or not I swept the floor enough. I know that I have a lot of work to do. And, I think only through the steps am I going to be able to take a look at the problems that caused me to game in the first place. Because gaming is a symptom of my behavior and of my thinking and my addiction. As I mentioned, I don't really feel comfortable in my own skin. And so in order for me to take a look at what the causes are, I'm going to have to work the steps. And so that's what I'm doing. So I meet with my sponsor once a week, and I check in with him, and we talk about the things that have been going on and the things that I could potentially be working on. And I really appreciate the time that I have with him, because it's time for me to really be honest and, take stock of how my week was before, and if there's anything I could have done differently or improved upon, then that's a good point in time for me to talk to someone else about maybe what I could have done differently, or maybe take a look at, wow, I did a good job with that. And I think that's really an important thing for me to remember too, is that to take a look at my accomplishments in the past almost 60 days, because things have gotten already so much better than they were when I came in. I feel like that I take better care of myself in general. And it's really just the little things. It's like going to sleep at a regular time, brushing and flossing my teeth. I mean, I've had 4 root canals because I was either passed out and not bothering to brush my teeth, or I was staying up all night playing video games, drinking Red Bulls and eating Snickers bars, and too lazy to brush my teeth because I just wanted to, go to bed so I could wake up and start it all over again. I'm eating better in general. These are things that I've always wanted to do, to take better care of myself. They've been nagging things throughout my life that, I knew was a symptom of my addictions. And, I feel hopeful on a daily basis. I know that if I continue to do the very basic things that I've been told will work for me, that I can get through just about anything without having to pick up a game. And there have been some trying times. I have a lot to repair with my relationship with my wife. We get into some pretty big fights, and I understand that there's a lot of resentment towards the way that I've treated her for the past 10 years. It's kind of embarrassing and it's shameful at times, and sometimes I get really defensive, and it's something that I have to work on. But through it all, I just have to realize that I'm an addict, and I just have to try to do the best that I can with the day that I've been given, and to try to move forward as best I can. And no matter if it's been a big fight or something scary with my daughter or something, with the business, whatever, I haven't had to game over it. And that's really the benefit of this program, that I don't have to pick up a game today no matter what happens. And I do that also through your guys' support, through coming to these meetings and hearing other people share the same things that I'm going through, and to relate to what people have to say, and to experience hope through other people's eyes. So, one of my favorite things that I have to remember from the big book is it says, "Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path." I almost lost everything because of my gaming addiction. I almost went back to drinking and to drugging, and it's because I stopped doing just the really basic stuff. And that's something I have to remember today, that I don't have to do that much to have so much more given to me in return. And if I can keep things simple, if I can just do the very basic things that I have to do on a daily basis to have a better life game free, then I think today I'm willing to do that. I'm really glad that you guys are here, and I'm really glad I was asked to share. Thanks, guys.